Blake Shelton got married to Gwen Stefani, and honestly, the whole world just stopped to celebrate. But here's the thing, nobody saw coming. Millions of fans watched that wedding footage and felt something weird, like something was missing. And the strangest part? They couldn't even put their finger on what it was. This ain't about comparing women. It never was, not really. This is about comparing energy, comparing eras, comparing two completely different versions of the same guy. And once you really get what changed inside Blake Shelton, you're gonna watch him totally different from now on. But before we get into all that, we gotta go back. Way back. Before all the headlines and tabloid mess. Before country music's golden couple became country music's biggest divorce story that everyone had an opinion about.
And I need you.
So it's 2011. Blake Shelton is absolutely killing it everywhere. His career is blowing up in ways nobody really predicted would happen. The Voice just started, and suddenly all of America is obsessed with his quick wit and that country boy charm he's got. And standing right next to him at every red carpet, every awards show, every late-night interview, Miranda Lambert. They didn't look perfect together. They looked magnetic, and there's a huge difference between those two things that most people totally miss. Go watch any footage from back then and you'll feel it immediately hit you. The way they'd glance at each other mid-sentence like they were sharing some secret joke. The way their teasing had just a little too much edge to be completely playful. The way you genuinely couldn't tell if they were flirting or low-key fighting about something. That tension was honestly intoxicating to watch.
We were always meant to say goodbye.
Because it felt unscripted. Kinda dangerous. Real, you know? Like watching two wildfires trying to burn in the same space without completely consuming each other. But here's the thing about fire that nobody really wants to remember. It's beautiful from a distance. But get too close and somebody's gonna get burned eventually. During those Miranda years, Blake never looked settled. He looked hungry. Restless. Like he was always chasing something just out of reach. Like every award and every #1 single still wasn't quite enough to quiet whatever was going on inside him. Maybe that restlessness is exactly what made the music so good though. Because when you're unsettled inside yourself, you write lyrics that help other people settle their own chaos. You channel what you can't fix into something strangers can actually feel. But here's where it gets complicated in ways people don't want to look at too closely. The same energy that creates powerful music and captivating performances, it often creates turbulent relationships when the cameras stop rolling. Two alpha personalities at the absolute peak of their careers. Two massive egos getting fed by millions of fans, while the private moments get quieter and harder. Two people who both need to win, trying to build something together. Think about what that actually looked like when everyone went home. Separate tour buses going to different cities. Different time zones every night. Industry rivalries that everyone pretended didn't exist but absolutely did. Who sold more tickets? Who got the better interview? Who wrote the song critics actually remember?
I used to love you.
That kind of constant proximity between two ambitious people doesn't just create tension, it creates comparison. And comparison is basically slow poison for any relationship where both people are chasing the same dream. By 2015, what used to look like passion started looking more like exhaustion, wearing makeup for the cameras. The interviews got shorter. The jokes landed weird. The glances that used to linger now looked away quick. Something had shifted and everyone watching could feel it, even if nobody wanted to say it out loud yet. Then the announcement dropped. Blake and Miranda were getting divorced. Done. Over. The internet went absolutely crazy with theories. Headlines screamed betrayal everywhere you looked. Fans picked sides aggressively like it was their own relationship falling apart. And suddenly country music's most beloved couple became country music's biggest warning story.
Bet you think that everything good is gone.
But here's what nobody was really focusing on in all that chaos. Blake didn't just lose a marriage. He lost a whole version of himself that he'd spent years building in front of everyone. When your entire public identity is about being part of a couple, and that couple crumbles in front of millions of people, who even are you without it? What parts were real and what parts were performance? Which emotions were yours and which belonged to the brand? These questions genuinely break people, and Blake was about to face every single one while the world watched and judged. Enter Gwen Stefani. Now, here's what most people completely forget about how they started. They didn't meet at some romantic party. They met right in the middle of mutual emotional wreckage. Gwen had just separated from Gavin Rossdale after 13 years. Cheating rumors everywhere. Tabloid humiliation following her around. The kind of betrayal that makes you question every memory you thought was real.
And if it's real, well, I don't want to know.
And Blake was still dealing with his own public divorce, still getting questions about what went wrong, still learning how to exist as just himself after almost a decade of being half of something. They were both pretty broken. And sometimes, broken people recognize each other in ways that whole people just can't understand. Picture that moment on The Voice set when something first happened between them. Two people professionally pretending to be okay while privately falling apart. Two people who understood the specific loneliness of being heartbroken while your pain makes Maxine covers at every grocery store. That's not just attraction, that's soul recognition. And recognition creates a completely different kind of bond than the competitive fireworks Blake had with Miranda. This wasn't about proving anything. No professional competition underneath. No industry rivalry. No overlapping fan bases comparing album sales. Gwen was pop royalty. Blake was country royalty. Their professional worlds barely touched. And maybe that separation was exactly what Blake needed to finally breathe for the first time in years.
If I could just come in, I swear I'll leave.
And you could see the shift in him almost right away if you were paying attention. Watch early interviews with Blake and Gwen after they went public. His whole energy is different, less guarded, less performative, less like he's bracing for a joke that cuts too deep. He looks relieved. Maybe for the first time in years, honestly. But here's the uncomfortable part that creates all the controversy. That relief looked different to different people. Some fans saw healing. Two wounded people finding comfort after devastating losses. Redemption. Hope. Proof that heartbreak doesn't have to be the end of your story. Others saw something else entirely. They saw the edge disappearing. The unpredictability fading. The sharp wit getting softer. The restless hunger settling into something that looked like boring contentment. And contentment makes for terrible viral content, apparently.
I used to love you.
Think about why old Blake and Miranda clips still go viral today. It's not because that relationship was healthier, it's because it was more entertaining to pick apart. Every glance could mean multiple things. Every awkward pause could be analyzed. Every joke might be sincere or might be a wound. That ambiguity was addictive. With Gwen, there's no ambiguity. The story is clear. Two hurt people found each other, healed together, blended families, built something stable. It's wholesome, but wholesome doesn't trend like chaos does. And that's where the real tension starts. Because here's what fans won't admit out loud. They're not comparing women. They're comparing how entertained they were by each version of Blake. And being entertained by someone's chaos? That's a complicated thing to sit with. We say we want celebrities to be happy. But do we actually watch happy? Do we click headlines about Blake having a healthy relationship? Or do we click the drama?
But that ain't gonna work for me. I don't wanna live without.
The honest answer says more about us than it does about Blake. And maybe that's why this conversation feels uncomfortable. When we criticize Blake for losing his edge, we're really admitting we preferred watching someone struggle. We liked the friction because it gave us something to analyze. His peace bores us because his peace doesn't need us. That stings more than we want to admit. But here's what nobody's talking about. While fans debate which Blake era was more real, there's someone else connected to this story who understands transformation better than almost anyone. Someone who watched it all from a few feet away. Someone who went through her own heartbreak, her own reinvention, her own journey from chaos to clarity. Kelly Clarkson sat in that voice chair and saw everything. And her story might be the key to understanding what we're really watching when celebrities change in front of us. Stay with me. Because part 2 is where this comes together. Part 2. Kelly Clarkson watched all of it happen from her front row seat. From that spinning red chair on The Voice, she saw Blake's whole transformation play out in real time. She was there during the peak Miranda years. She watched the divorce unfold while sitting next to him during tapings. She saw Gwen come in and slowly change the energy of every room they shared. And here's what makes Kelly's perspective so valuable. She wasn't just watching from a professional distance. She was living her own parallel story that kind of mirrored his in weird ways. After 7 years that everyone assumed was solid, just like Blake, she'd built her whole public identity around being part of a happy couple. Just like Blake, she had to publicly unravel that identity, while everybody watched and picked apart every detail. And just like Blake, she had to figure out who she actually was when the relationship that defined her ended. But here's where their stories go in completely different directions. Blake found peace by finding someone new. His healing came wrapped inside another relationship pretty quick. Gwen became the soft landing that helped him rebuild. Kelly chose a different path entirely. After her divorce, she didn't jump into dating. She dove into work with almost manic energy. She processed her pain publicly without filtering anything. She cried on her talk show in front of millions. She made jokes about her ex that made audiences gasp. She released music about the whole painful journey without trying to make it pretty.
And it's not too long before
Watch her interviews from that era, and you see something remarkable happening. She's not hiding the mess. She's not curating the narrative. She's just surviving out loud and letting everyone watch the ugly process. And fans connected to that vulnerability differently than they connected to Blake's quieter evolution. Because Kelly gave people permission to be messy, to be angry without apologizing, to be petty sometimes, to feel every ugly emotion that comes with heartbreak without rushing to package it into a neat redemption arc. There was no Gwen waiting for Kelly, just Kelly, alone, figuring it out in real time. And here's something interesting that happened because of her approach. Nobody accused Kelly of losing her edge, not once. If anything, she got sharper. Her interviews became more honest. Her humor got darker. Her music hit harder because it wasn't trying to make anybody comfortable.
Now hold on, 'cause I ain't done.
Why did Blake's healing look like softening while Kelly's healing looked like sharpening? This matters more than you might think. When Blake found Gwen, he found protection. He found someone who understood his wounds and created safety around them. That safety let him finally relax muscles he didn't know were clenched. Stop performing. Stop needing chaos to feel alive. But safety doesn't create viral content. Kelly didn't find safety in another person. She found herself through the pain. She sat in discomfort alone. She processed anger publicly. She let herself be the villain in some people's stories and didn't apologize. And that rawness? That refusal to be curated? It kept her edge visible.
You're married to, wanna say it now, wanna
Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say. We reward pain when it's performed loudly. We get bored by healing when it happens quietly. Blake chose quiet healing, protected conversations, careful boundaries, a controlled narrative that didn't give strangers access to his vulnerable moments, and fans saw that as losing something. Kelly chose loud processing, public tears, unfiltered interviews, cameras capturing her at her worst, and fans saw that as staying real. But think about what that actually means. We're punishing Blake for having healthy boundaries. We're rewarding Kelly for constant emotional exposure. Neither reaction is fair because both people are just trying to survive. Lost their own way. Different people process trauma, different taggerness. Some need to externalize everything. Others need to protect their inner world. Neither is more authentic, but only one makes compelling content. That's the trap public figures face. The chaos becomes our conversation. Their heartbreak becomes our headlines. And when they find peace, when they stop bleeding openly, we see that healing as them becoming less interesting. That's not their problem. That's ours to examine. Here's what we actually know about Blake in his 40s. He's not that restless guy who said the wrong thing in interviews anymore. He's not chasing approval from critics. He's not treating chart positions like they determine his worth. He's settled on a ranch in Oklahoma with the woman he chose. He's stepfather to 3 kids who needed stability. He shows up, does his work, goes home to his family. That sounds exactly like health. But health doesn't trend.
Every day together, always.
Think about what Blake's actually survived this past decade. A public divorce that painted him as the possible villain. Constant comparison to his talented ex. Scrutiny on every new relationship. Pressure to prove Gwen wasn't just a rebound. Building a blended family with someone from a completely different world. Trying to have a private life while being constantly in public. Most people would crumble under a quarter of that pressure. Blake just got quieter. And quiet resilience is still resilience. It's just not the kind we're trained to celebrate. We want the dramatic comeback, the pointed diss track, the viral moment where he destroys the haters. Blake refused to give us any of that. He just lived his life. And apparently just living isn't a spectacle worth watching.
Almost a year before she called him up.
No Doubt made her a rock icon. Her solo career reinvented her completely. Her marriage to Gavin was held up as relationship goals for a whole generation. When that marriage ended in humiliation, Gwen had to face something scary. Her whole adult identity had been shaped by relationships. Band member, wife, mother. Who was she when all that got stripped away? Finding Blake wasn't just about love, it was proof she could start over at 45. That her story wasn't finished because one chapter ended badly. That heartbreak didn't have to be the final word. Together they created something neither had before. 2 wounded people with matching scars who decided to heal together instead of competing over whose pain was bigger.
In heartache, I've made a mess of me.
That kind of partnership isn't boring. It's actually pretty rare. But rare doesn't always look exciting from outside. Think about what makes relationships actually last. It's not grand gestures that look good on camera, not viral moments, not intense chemistry that makes watching feel uncomfortable. It's boring consistency, showing up, choosing each other repeatedly without needing an audience. Blake and Gwen have that. It's just not a performance anymore. And when something isn't performed for us, we sometimes mistake quiet authenticity for not being real. So where does all this leave us? Maybe the question isn't whether Blake lost his edge, or whether Gwen changed him, or whether Miranda years were more authentic. Maybe the question is what we actually want from celebrities we follow. Do we want them healthy, or just entertaining? Do we want them finding peace, or do we need them struggling so we feel less alone?
It's hard to remember how it
The honest answer reveals something about us. Not them. Blake made a choice. Peace over performance. Privacy over access. Healing over headlines. And some people won't forgive him because his contentment doesn't give them anything to dissect. But here's the thing about watching someone evolve. You gotta let them actually do it. You gotta accept the version you loved was always gonna change. That growth means leaving old patterns behind. That chaos you found compelling might have been exhausting for the person living it. Maybe Miranda years weren't more real. Maybe they were just louder. Maybe Gwen years aren't less passionate. Maybe they're just quieter and more protected. And maybe quiet passion, protected by boundaries, chosen daily, built on mutual healing, is the hardest thing to find and the easiest to overlook. Blake didn't lose his edge. He just stopped needing us to see it.
You stay here right beside me and watch
Might be the most authentic thing he's ever done. The real question is whether we can respect that, whether we can watch someone find peace without needing them to prove it looks exciting enough, whether we can celebrate quiet happiness even when it gives us nothing to talk about. Because how we answer says everything about what we value. Drama or health, chaos or calm, entertainment or evolution. Blake made his choice. Now it's your turn. And if this made you think different about what we owe celebrities, about what growth actually looks like, about what peace costs when you find it in public, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because this conversation isn't really about Blake. It's about all of us, and how we hold space for people who decide their peace matters more than our entertainment. That's the real lesson here, and it might stay with you longer than you expect.